They're just constantly on us. TV, radio, the mail, on our phones, texting. Hey, Bill, Tim Walz here. You up? They're everywhere all the time. Jesus Christ, fuck off. Let mommy put her purse down. And what I could see is replacing the vice president because, yeah, she's just not very popular anywhere. And it didn't seem to work out. And I don't know, that's been done before on a ticket. I just think she's a bad politician.
Democrats are scrambling to find anyone to lead their troubled campaign toward re-election. And guess who's back in the spotlight? Kamala Harris. Because nothing says new direction like bringing back one of the least inspiring vice presidents in recent memory. Bill Maher hasn't exactly been a fan, and in a recent monologue, he made that crystal clear, completely dismantling the idea of a Harris 2024 run.
When Joe Biden was still hanging on to be the candidate, many of the pundits said that to switch him out this late would cause chaos. Yeah, that was never my position. And indeed, what happened was Kamala Harris said, "Oh, look, I guess it's my turn." And the next day, a grateful nation handed her $500 million. The only reason we stay stuck in permanent campaign mode is money. It's estimated this year that $16 billion will be spent on political ads. It's time we admit that the endless campaign exists only to enrich advertisers, political consultants, and what's left of the news media.
Maher opened his monologue by pointing out that it took Joe Biden years, not weeks, or months to finally acknowledge what many Americans had already noticed. He no longer had the sharpness to lead a re-election bid. Those who voiced concerns early on were dismissed or silenced. But after Biden's poor debate showing, those concerns quickly became mainstream. And how did Democrats respond? Instead of turning to a bold new leader, they backed Kamala Harris, whose low-profile vice presidency left many wondering where she'd been. The result? A devastating electoral defeat that few could ignore.
People didn't used to get sick of the candidates because you barely ever saw them unless you happened to be standing at the back end of a train. But now we never stop seeing them. The winner in modern elections comes down to who we're less tired of. They're just constantly on us. TV, radio, the mail, on our phones, texting. Hey, Bill, Tim Walz here. You up? They're everywhere all the time. Jesus Christ, fuck off. Let mommy put her purse down.
One of the more restrained reasons Maher believes Kamala Harris hurt the campaign? Voter fatigue. People were simply tired of seeing her everywhere, yet not in a strong presidential way. Alongside Tim Walz, she became a constant presence on screens, at events, in social media feeds, and overload of PR appearances. Instead of building confidence, it led to burnout. The campaign felt more like a relentless ad for a product few wanted, a vice president with low approval, no clear message, and even less connection. As Maher noted, it wasn't just overexposure, it was political misfire on full display.
What I could see is replacing the vice president because, yeah, she's just not very popular anywhere. And it didn't seem to work out. And I don't know, that's been done before on a ticket. I just think she's a bad politician.
Another reason Maher believes Kamala Harris struggles as a candidate? She's simply not an effective politician, not in a bold or unconventional way, just fundamentally unconvincing. One of her biggest weaknesses is handling unscripted questions. The moment she's pushed off her prepared remarks, she often appears caught off guard. We've all seen the now famous word salads, long, rambling answers that say little and leave viewers confused rather than reassured.
Need to get to go and need to be able to get where you need to go.
I do believe that we should have rightly believed, but we certainly believe that certain issues are just settled. And that's why I do believe that we are living in real unsettled times.
Even her scripted interviews can be tough to watch. Harris often fumbles, backtracks, and gives answers that leave voters more puzzled than informed. For someone with years of public service, her communication often lacks clarity and polish. In politics, confidence and clear messaging matter, and Time and again, Harris seems to fall short. Maher isn't exaggerating. He's pointing out what many have noticed. Case in point, the moment she mistakenly referred to North Korea as a US ally.
The United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. In the North, we see a brutal dictatorship, rampant human rights violations, and an unlawful weapons program.
Seriously, how does anyone accidentally call North Korea an ally? That's more than a simple slip, it's a major diplomatic blunder. While we may overlook it from someone else, Kamala Harris has a pattern of public missteps and awkward speeches. These aren't rare moments, they've become part of her reputation. Now imagine her in a high-stakes meeting with world leaders, NATO, G7, or negotiating with China or Russia, and she makes another confusing remark. That's not just awkward. It could have real consequences. When the role demands precision and global awareness, consistent verbal missteps become a liability. Maher didn't just make a point, he raised a serious concern.
This is Kamala's great dilemma. Trump is invulnerable to an October surprise, but she is very vulnerable because she's the one who is still undefined. And as she showed in this week's Bret Baier interview, her go-to when attacked for her own actions is usually Trump is worse. Okay, we know that. But now undecided voters want to hear about you. They want someone to vote for. This election comes down to this. Trump has a coalition of voters made up of A, people who really do like him, and B, people who think with all of his flaws, he's still better than far-left insanity.
Kamala Harris struggled on the campaign trail, often defaulting to the same fallback line. Well, Trump was worse, as if simply not being Trump was enough to ruin the presidency. But that's not a strategy, it's an evasion. According to Maher, a key test for Harris was whether she'd stand firm against the rising pressure from extreme ideological voices. Would she lead with conviction or just echo the loudest slogans? Spoiler, she often gave in, rather than offer bold, independent leadership. She followed the trends. For Maher and many frustrated voters, that wasn't just disappointing. It signaled she wasn't ready to unite and led a deeply divided country.
The voters' big doubt about Kamala is, are you part of far-left insanity? The attack ad I see 10 times a day, and a question Bret Baier aimed at her on Wednesday, was about her saying in 2019 that she supported providing taxpayer-funded sex change operations to illegal immigrants in prison. Something that's actually never happened and has no real bearing on anybody's life. But it's a litmus test for voters out there who want to know of the Democrat, is there anything your fringe can suggest that will ever make you say, no, that's fucking ridiculous? It's getting late early, and we can't afford any more bad answers like this one last week.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
No bueno.
This was the turning point. For many voters, after 4 years of exhausting culture wars under President Biden, the public had one pressing question: would Kamala Harris continue that direction or take it even further? Sadly, she offered little reassurance. There was no clear vision, no sign she'd shift course. Her silence, or at times, alignment, signaled she might double down on the same divisive policies that had already alienated much of the electorate. Voters wanted strength, clarity, and common sense. Instead, they got vague rhetoric and activist slogans. When it came time to choose, many turned to the one candidate who promised stability, President Trump. Love him or not, he offered what? Harris didn't: bold leadership, economic focus, and a clear message of national direction. To many, Trump wasn't just a choice, he was a reset.
Next time, maybe try. Joe Biden generally did a good job, but sure, I wish we'd tightened the border sooner, as we have done now, and trust me, I learned my lesson, and that's never going to happen again. Kamala, it's so important that you win this election, not just for the sake of retaining a real democracy and for the good of the world, but also because I predicted a month ago you'd win this thing, and if you blow it, it's going to make me look bad.
One major reason Maher believes Kamala Harris is unfit for the presidency is her poor handling of the border crisis. When appointed as border czar, it was one of her most visible assignments, and she fell short. Under her watch, the southern border saw a dramatic surge in illegal crossings, overwhelming communities and raising serious security concerns. But it wasn't just the volume. According to Maher and others, the crisis included trafficking of people, drugs, and illegal weapons. Substances like fentanyl fueled rising overdose deaths, while law enforcement struggled to keep up. And Harris, often absent, offering vague statements while avoiding the core issue. As a leadership test, it wasn't just a failure, it was a no-show.
Got a really good prediction record, so please don't fuck this up. Kamala, ever since I put down my marker on you and said you'd win and I wasn't even worried about it, everyone, everywhere, on the road, in LA, texting me, emailing me, stopping me in restaurants, asking me, Bill, are you sure? No, I'm not fucking sure. What am I, Kreskin? I'm not sure, but that's my gut. I think Kamala Harris wants this. I think she can do this, to say nothing of, if she loses, she'll never hear the end of it from Joe. I told you I was the only one who could beat him, Biden.
Maher's prediction may not have changed the outcome, but it was spot on. Kamala Harris lost the election, and not by a narrow margin. Voters clearly rejected her. Yet even in defeat, Maher's criticisms still hold weight. Harris hasn't shifted course, evolved, or made any clear effort to improve. In fact, she seems to be leaning further into the traits that hurt her candidacy. Take her recent appearance at a major real estate conference, an ideal moment to show leadership and offer real solutions. Instead, she delivered another vague, rambling speech that left the audience confused and unimpressed. No clarity, no direction, just another display of unclear messaging. If Harris hopes to be a serious contender in the future, clear and effective communication would be a good place to start. Until then, Maher's critique remains a tough but relevant reality check, and that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.